Get yourself a gym membership while you can. Walk on a treadmill. Walk outside. Jog. What have you. Because it's going to pay dividends to your survival. All right, everybody, Terrence Popp here with another episode of Live from the Lair. And we're going to be cutting into this whole E&E thing a little bit more in depth here. This one is going to be as long as the last one because I'm introducing a term that you guys need to become familiar with. And that it's an acronym that we learned in the military. It's PACE, P-A-C-E. That stands for primary, alternate, contingent, and emergency. All right, those are the 4 levels of plan that you pretty much have to have in place for everything you do in the military. Op orders, warning orders, what have you. You know, if you're going to do a raid, ambush, recon, you got to have those 4 plans put in place because that really does improve your odds of survival astronomically. All right, if you just put together your primary plan and nothing else, well, I'm going to be honest, I have never seen a plan survive initial contact without it having to be modified. It's easier to modify something that you have something close to it. Like, for instance, you go from your primary to your alternate, those are very close. And then it just gets worse from there. Now, from the prepper mindset, if you look back in the archaeological record, especially in the Americas, going back a couple, 2,000-3,000 years, there has been very large civilizations that have existed. The Mayas, the Incas, there's like 2 or 3 other ones going all the way back to the Toltecs. And they had very large cities. And for whatever reason, be it climate change or something else, they collapsed. And you had basically a huge shrinking of the population. I'm sure there was all kinds of pandemonium going on there. If it happened then, it could happen now. All right, we have a very, very weak supply chain in regards to food and medicine and so forth. It's basically an as needed. And one thing breaks down and that chain of supply, we are 72 hours away from being at each other's throats. Because at the end of the day, we're just a bunch of hairless monkeys who happen to be just smart enough to make nuclear warheads that will one day probably destroy us.
The war on the West is no longer about men or women. It's about the ideological subversion of Western minds by foreign actors cloaked in a public relations-friendly outfit called feminism. Join the fight against the destabilization of our very civilization by reading Surviving Fourth Wave Feminism. Learn some inconvenient truths by clicking on the link in the description, because every time you do, a pansexual non-binary socialist cries.
Again, I went over this here, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency plan. You need to put together, what you're going to do. Like, your primary plan is probably something like shelter in place and try to ride it out. Most of the time, if there's a natural disaster or something along those lines, if you have enough food and water in a house to ride out 1 or 2 weeks, you should be fine before orders restored and so forth. Now, if there is a complete breakdown of the supply chain and the police aren't coming, the fire department's not coming, you're going to have to come up with an alternate plan. Now, in regard, mine is to move to move to a friend's house. That's my ultimate plan. I have friends that are further north, not quite as far. The strength in numbers, 2 or 3 guys are a lot more safe than one guy by himself. Now, my contingency, which is a fallback position. I'm putting together two. I'm actually looking for, I made an offer on a 30-acre spread in Prescott, Michigan. There's nothing on it. It's just partially wooded field thing. I need to start improving that, but that is one of my fallback positions. Another one is another individual. I will not put the location to where that one is because, that's his business and ours, quite frankly. If you find yourself in an emergency situation, I'm just going to tell you right now, you are fucked. And all you have is what you can carry or what you have with you. These other ones here, you're allowed the luxury of time and the ability to, work out your logistics and move to where you need to move. This one here, you don't. Like literally, you're in your house, you haven't made any other plans. Next thing you know, there's mobs trying to kick down your front door. You have to run out the back door. And all you can really carry with you is what you have in a bag. And this gets infinitely more complicated if you're married, have kids, have to deal with extended family. That's just a recipe for disaster right there. Okay, if you have those kind of ties or those complications in your life, you don't want to be here. You ideally want to start here before it gets that bad. And then you can have a little bit more time to move from there to your fallback positions. Now people are like, yeah, what's a fallback position? Well, a cabin, friend's house where you have, supplies and you have agreements with him that it's cool if you go there. Because if you just run out of the area, you're a refugee. And historically, refugees are not treated well or looked upon favorably. Just saying. If you want to have your best chance of survival, you need to have the following things in your person, in your car, or in a bag ready to go. Minimum. You got to have maps of your area and where you want to get to. They have to be paper, because if you don't have power, they still work. I learned how to navigate on maps decades ago. I could still do it today in my sleep. You want to have a compass. It's easy to get turned around. If you have a compass, then you can use those maps effectively and you'll be okay. Water purification. When I was, when I was in the Ranger Battalion in the infantry, we had little bottles of water purification tablets. They worked. The water did not taste good, but they worked. So literally, you can get those like 2 little bottles of water purification tablets for like $18 on eBay. You can find them on Amazon. You have the ability to start a fire. Now, there's some people out there have these, crazy fire starting kits where you flint and steel and all that crazy stuff. Those are great. They are effective if you are basically trained up on how to do that. If not, it's a pain in the ass. So you got to have a way to start a fire. Medical supplies. Now, when I say medical supplies, I'm not talking about a huge med kit with IVs, tourniquets, and all the other crap. Ideally, you just want to have a small medical kit to deal with, superficial bullshit. That, believe it or not, that stuff can get out of hand and turn real bad real quick. Like, sutures, have some iodine, alcohol swabs, different types of bandages, different types of Band-Aids and so forth, moleskin for your feet, medical tape. So if something's a little bigger, you can, fashion a bigger bandage out of like paper towel or something. It's not rocket science. It's no big deal. You want to have the ability to put up a shelter and cordage. A lot of you are like, oh, it's a big tent. No, it's not. It can be a tarp. You can do a lot of shit with a tarp and you'll be just fine. Okay, next is a weapon. Depends upon the state you're in, but if it gets to the point where it's bad, the laws can kiss your ass. You come first. You have the right to defend yourself. last but not least, have a goddamn plan. All right, so say you need to run away, you have all this shit, you have a plan on how to get to your alternate location or your contingency location, your odds have gone way up of actually not dying. All right. If you find yourself in a situation, if you're a refugee, have value. All right. If you're a kid who just sat in his mama's basement forever and all of a sudden you're running down, the street trying to get out of the city and you find yourself outside the city limits and you start asking people, could you please feed me? Please help me. You're not going to find any help. You have no value. I'm sorry. All right, if you're a mechanic, you have a skill that you can swap for food. If you're a nurse, that's definitely going to be needed. Even better yet, a doctor. But let's face it, those guys have money. They're probably not going to be running around on foot. Bring yourself up to having some value so you're not looked upon in a negative light. Now, you guys are like, oh, that sounds like a lot of shit. Okay, I'm going to pull this out for you right here. All right, this here is my compass. You can even get them smaller than this. This is a military grade compass. I think this one was like $40. All right, this is the first aid kit. I have sutures in here, all kinds of Band-Aids, mercurochrome, iodine, alcohol, medical tape, duct tape, and I actually have some pressure dressings in here as well. And the water purification tablets in this one little box. All right, you can buy this on eBay and build it yourself. All right, now here's the fire. See how this works? It's an old brass lighter, and look, instant fire. Okay, so if you can make a fire, and you can build shelter, because this is actual tarp here. It's, I believe this is 8x8, and it reflects heat. This cost me like $15. It's nothing. And a little bit of cordage so I can tie it to some trees. If you're running all day, you're pretty much going to stay pretty warm. And if you need to chill and recharge your batteries, you put up the tarp, you light a fire, stay in position 4 to 6 hours till you're rested and rehydrated, bust it all down, put it in your bag or whatever, and bail. Okay, again, we have the PACE here, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. Now, when it comes to getting out of the area, your primary plan, get while the getting is good. And you can use the roads, cars, trucks, planes, trains, boats, whatever. That's a good method. All right. If you can find yourself ahead of the power curve, great. All right. If you can't use the primary, the alternated surface roads or a boat, like you can drive all over this country and you can stay off the freeways and the highways and use just surface roads. This is going to take you a long time. If these are clogged up or there's, checkpoints or what have you, the surface roads work pretty good. I'm going to be honest, trying to lock down an entire area to include the surface roads is very hard. It takes a lot of people and one little hole in that net and a lot of people can get out. All right, now the contingency here is either it's partial on the roads with a car, truck, and then on foot, when that means you're pretty much partially fucked when it comes to movement, because on foot is the slowest. You can, if you know what you're doing, the time doesn't really matter, and you're in good shape. If you're in a really, really hostile environment, on foot is probably pretty good. It's really hard to run down one dude, especially if he knows what he's doing, he knows how to hide, and he knows how to fight, which is the last option. I'm just saying that if you know what you're doing, it doesn't necessarily mean a death sentence. Okay, now E means you are fucked. You're 100% foot from start to finish. So that means you're running out your back door, and you're on foot until you get to where you want to be, or you're a refugee. If you find yourself in the contingency or emergency plan, there's some things you can do to get out of the urban environment or away from the cities, which are very effective. I've done this before. Train tracks. Train tracks are pretty much a straight line out of town. A lot of these train tracks, most of these train tracks are run by, I don't remember the train company that it is anymore, but they basically run freight everywhere, and they maintain the track, and then there's a certain percentage of land on each side of the track, and there's usually a service road, that is there to service the tracks. And literally on one escape and evasion operation, I walked on the train tracks for 130 some odd miles over a 7-day period. Yes, they were patrolled. Yes, there were dogs, the whole deal, but I easily was able to do it. And I didn't really have to run at all. Just slow, methodical movement, mostly at night, and you're fine. Okay, there's all kinds of places to hide there along the tracks to keep you from being detected or seen. Okay, next, and I mentioned this last time, is power lines. Now, where I am within 4 miles of a high-tension power line, straight shot north, and it goes straight for like 28 miles. So I throw on a pack, have a good set of boots, and I'm gone. Literally, I could be at the end of that 28 miles inside of a day, maybe a day and a half. I'm old, but it can be done. Okay, another one you can do, a lot of people don't realize this, is the edge of the water. You can literally walk along the beach or on the edges of large bodies of water relatively easily, especially at night. I've done that as well. Easily it can be done. All right, forest and swamp, self-explanatory. Most people don't want to go into a swamp. It's very annoying. There's all kinds of bugs. You're walking through mud. It smells. It's slow going. Same thing goes for a forest. A lot of people are just not about walking through a forest. They'll stay on the roads or trails in a forest, but very few people are going to go off the trail and be able to walk and navigate that stuff freely. So again, if you find yourself in these two positions here using any of these methods, you better be in good shape. All right, because if your life is on the line, waiting around or basically relying on you getting in shape and the first week of this bullshit, that's far from the preferred method. And a lot of people who wind up in the contingency emergency parts of their plans, if they're not in shape, they're not going to make it. Get yourself a gym membership while you can. Walk on a treadmill. Walk outside. Jog. What have you. Because it's going to pay dividends to your survival. All right, now, hopefully I haven't gone on too long. At least not as long as the last one. I'm going to go into this a little bit more in detail and bring that information forward to you in future lair videos. May not be directly after this one, but we'll see. Anyway, I'll see you guys later.